Hello, Ignacy Portal Games, and this is 100 vlogs for 100 day, and today I'm discussing the history of gaming in Poland. I promise you that we will do in this vlog very different topics, and I will discuss sometimes Portal Games related topics, sometimes board game related topics, and sometimes very different. And today we are discussing history, and I want to share you some information about how gaming looked like the many years in Poland. So let's start with the 70s, while in America you guys had Dungeons and Dragons, and then there was this all Avalon Hill war games, and the gaming was quite growing. The same was happening in Germany. In Poland, not whatsoever. In 70s there was no gaming whatsoever in Poland, no board games, no role-playing games, no miniature games, nothing. So you had a great childhood in America. Here in Poland, we just played soccer. And then let's move to the 80s. In the 80s, we still have quite a situation in terms of the politics in Poland. And if you dig some information about the 80s in Poland, very bad stories and very tough situation here in the country with Russian tanks in the streets, and there was not much gaming. There were basically two companies who tried to release something board game related. So there was no miniature games, there was no role-playing games, and there was two companies who were struggling to do something about the board games. One of these companies, called Sfera, was releasing Polish edition of Talisman. And it was a major hit because there was no competitors, no other titles. Everyone was playing Talisman, Polish edition of Talisman, and they tried to release a couple of more fantasy-oriented board games. Super poor quality of the components, but there was everything that was on the market. So of course these games were very popular. And then there was the second publisher of board games called Encore that was releasing science fiction games, also super poor quality. But hey, they were only games that we were able to buy, so everyone was buying them, and they released like 5, 6, maybe seven games. And if you ask anyone my age in Poland if they played this game, they will say yes, we played, because there was no choices. Everyone played Gwiezdny Kupiec, which was like a Star Trader, or Odkrywcy Nowych Światów, that was like people who discover new worlds, and a couple of other titles. They did War of the Ring. The funny fact is that these days, like a couple of years ago, people discovered that all these games that this company Encore was releasing in Poland were not legal. That was a fake copy. Somehow they get the files and they were printing it here in Poland without any copyrights. So back then these were our heroes. We loved them for bringing anything board game related to Poland, and we as kids were buying these and playing, and we loved the company. And now as adults we discovered that they just stole the files and were printing it in Poland and doing a great business because it was selling like crazy. That was in the 80s, so tanks in the streets, like 5 or 6 games on the market. And let's move to the 90s. In the 90s, something very interesting happening, and I have with me the copy. The first issue of Polish magazine about role-playing games is happening. It is the year 1993. Ignacy is in high school, and nobody's playing role-playing games except some super crazy nerds who somehow grabbed the books from America and from UK. Nobody knows what it is, role-playing games. Nobody's playing board games anyway. Nobody's playing miniature games. And this publisher, Jacek Rodek, the name of the publisher, decides to create the industry. And he releases this, that was like 16 pages, am I right? No, 32. 32 pages of the magazine about role-playing games, and very low print run, and he starts promoting what is role-playing games. And he basically built the market. So the whole 90s is like a super huge growth of the role-playing game fandom in Poland. A few years later we have a Polish edition of Warhammer role-playing game, then we have a Polish edition of Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, then we have a Polish edition of Cyberpunk role-playing game. Still no board games, believe it or not. Still no miniature games. Also some stores pop up, and these stores import Games Workshop games, so Ignacy and geeks like him discover Games Workshop products and spend a ton of money on these miniatures. Still no board gaming. And all the 90s And as you may remember from the history of Portal Games, I founded the company in 1999. So the whole 90s, the whole decade, board gaming scene in Poland is only role-playing games. There is no single publisher who is doing board game. There is no single publisher who is doing a miniature game. The company that brought this magazine and became the biggest player in the market, and they started releasing Warhammer role-playing game, Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, and many other role-playing games. They do also Polish edition of Doom Trooper, first CCG in Poland, and they try to promote the Chronopia and the Warzone, but then things change and they don't release it anyway. So the gaming scene in Poland in 90s is role-playing games. And we moved to the new center, year 2000, I started the company, and as you know from the history of my company, I'm doing role-playing games like everybody in the market. And then in 2002 or 2003, I released my first board game that was a joke, basically, you know it from my stories. It was a joke, and this joke makes me money, so I released another game. And then 2004, we have a new gaming company appearing in the market, and they release Drakon, Polish edition of Drakon from FFG. Drakon wins the Game of the Year in Poland. Suddenly we have a couple of games released in Poland. Years pass, and now, 15 years later or 20 years later, Poland is the third biggest market in Europe after Germany and after France. The hobby is growing, everybody's playing miniature games and role-playing games and board games, and after this whole decade between 2010 and 2020, when board games took the priority and everybody was playing board games and Portal Games started doing board games and role-playing games were in a little bit of shadow, this publisher finally decided to stop doing games, and now they are just doing fantasy and science fiction novels, so they are now book publisher. And role-playing games went into the shadow. Now, for the past 2 or 3 years, role-playing games are becoming more and more popular again. Polish edition of Dungeons and Dragons, Polish edition of new edition of Call of Cthulhu, Polish edition of many other games like Alien, like Dune, announced already. So now, these days, we are living in a golden era of gaming in Poland. Everyone, literally everyone in the country knows, heard or played board games. It is very popular. Role-playing games are once again getting lots of attention, and there's a ton of people also playing miniature games. So it started from nothing. 70s, you guys were playing Dungeons and Dragons, you were playing Avalon Hill games, we had nothing. Then in 80s, the whole decade, for the whole 10 years, we had altogether like 5 or 6 games released for 10 years. And then in 90s, there's a big turn in the history of Polish gaming, and we all start playing role-playing games, and we still play no board games whatsoever. And then 2004 and 5 and 6, and suddenly we discovered board gaming. That was a short history, the short history lesson about board gaming and gaming in general in Poland. Let me know how it was in your country, because we all know how it was in America. We all heard how it was in UK, and we know the stories about the Games Workshop. But if you're watching in France, if you're watching in Germany, if you're watching in Netherlands, if you're watching in Spain, in any other different country, let us know when the gaming became popular in your country and what was the titles that brought the attention. For us, the first issue of the magazine about role-playing game changed everything. Thank you for watching, and that was... Where's my tractor? And that was another episode of Portal Games Vlog. We are recording 100 episodes for 100 days to try to grow this channel. As for now, we are super not successful. The channel is not growing yet, but we need your help. We need your feedback, we need your comments, and we need your likes, and we need your shares. So if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy this channel, if you want this channel to grow, please promote it with your friends. Please share it on your Twitter, Facebook, anywhere, because we need your help to keep this channel alive. Thank you for watching, and see you tomorrow.